Lately, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about drug recognition experts and swabbing for marijuana while driving. There are a couple things that I think we all have to bear in mind. Number one, the pilot program has ended. The pilot program was last year, from around January 2018 through December of 2018. As far as I know, laws haven't been passed in terms of what the standards are, what the procedure is, and what the penalties are, really. So the way that this works, and I'm just going to summarize here because there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of articles on the web, but let me summarize exactly what's going on here. There is a growing fear that people who are using marijuana, whether that's recreationally or medically, are going to be getting behind the wheel and causing more accidents. Okay? That is the fear. So in order to combat that, the pilot program was instituted in order to try and figure out a way to recognize people who are drinking under the influence of narcotics, drugs, specifically marijuana. Well, from my understanding, here's how they did it. They used drug recognition experts who are highly trained police officers to recognize the signs of intoxication as a result of controlled substances. In other words, drugs. And those drug recognition expert police officers are patrolling the streets or patrolling the highways, and they'll pull somebody over who shows signs of intoxication, either weaving or they commit a traffic offense or whatever the case may be. They ask them to ask the driver to submit to a drug test. And what that drug test is, it's a swab on the inner cheek. It's to collect saliva samples. And essentially, they do a test in their kit to see whether or not it does test positive for a controlled substance. In addition to that test, the drug recognition expert also uses his or her training and experience to determine if the drug impaired the driver's ability to operate the motor vehicle properly. Well, there are a couple of problems with this. Well, forgive me, there are a lot of problems with this. One of the biggest problems is that there are no standards. There isn't. It's not like a drinking and driving case where at a 0.08 or higher, there is a presumption that you're intoxicated. That's not the case here. Why? Because they don't have the scientific proof behind whether or not a certain level of nanograms of marijuana is going to cause intoxication or impairment. That's why they use the drug recognition experts, and please forgive me, I use that term loosely, training and experience. So what are your rights when it comes to these things? Can you refuse them? Well, at this point, yeah. Are there any consequences to refusing? Well, aside from being delayed even further, I don't know that they've outlined any real consequences in terms of whether or not you refuse the salivary test. Now, it is very likely that the police officer will detain you while they obtain a search warrant. And then at that point, with a search warrant, then yes, unfortunately, you do have to submit to the drug test. But as it stands right now, the legislature hasn't enacted laws that specifically say this is the consequence because of this number of nanograms of marijuana or THC in your system. So it'll be very interesting to see how things develop. But in the meantime, if this is something that you're dealing with, give us a call. We have the experience necessary to deal with improper searches, improper seizures. We have the experience necessary to deal with drug recognition experts' testimony. We know how to handle impaired cases. As I've said before, exceptional representation at affordable rates.